The Valkyrian diplomatic vessel hung in orbit above the human colony of New Cascadia like a silver tear against the void. Ambassador Gentar stood before the observation deck, her 4 eyes tracking the planet's lazy rotation. Below, on that unremarkable world, lived the species that had puzzled the Galactic Council for 3 standard cycles: humanity. "Ambassador, the human representatives have arrived," her aide chirped. Gentar turned from the viewport. The humans, a woman named Melissa Chandra and a man called Daniel Reeves, stepped through the airlock with the careful grace of those accustomed to artificial gravity. They wore simple black garments, a custom Gentar had learned indicated mourning. "Ambassador Gentar," Melissa said, her voice steady despite the obvious exhaustion in her features. "Thank you for seeing us." "The Council extends its condolences," Gentar replied, her translator rendering the formal Valkyrian phrases into human English. "The loss of a child is. We understand this is significant among your kind." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Our daughter, Sarah, she was 7. The Valkyrian ambassador had reviewed the incident reports a dozen times. A mining accident on Kepler 442b, a simple structural failure. 17 workers dead, including 1 child who shouldn't have been in the facility. The investigation had been thorough, the compensation calculated according to standard galactic protocols. Everything had been handled correctly. So why had these 2 humans requested an emergency diplomatic session? "The Council has approved reparations, according to Article 7 of the—" "We don't want money," Melissa interrupted, her dark eyes blazing with something Gentar couldn't quite identify. Not anger, something else. Something that made the ambassador's chromatophores ripple with unease. "Then what do you seek?" Daniel stepped forward, placing a small data crystal on the conference table. "We want you to understand what you're dealing with, what humans do when we lose one of our own." Gentar's primary eyes narrowed as she activated the crystal. Holographic data bloomed in the air between them: technical schematics, energy calculations, quantum field equations that made her scientific training seem primitive by comparison. "What is this?" she breathed. "After Sarah died," Melissa said, her voice cracking but determined, "we did what humans have always done. We refused to accept it. We grieved, yes. We mourned. But then we got to work." The schematics rotated, revealing a device unlike anything in the galactic archive. Gentar's 3 hearts began beating in asynchronous patterns as she recognized fragments of the theory: quantum consciousness preservation, temporal field manipulation, causality reversal. "This is impossible," Gentar whispered. "The energy requirements alone would require harvesting an entire star. The computational power to solve the consciousness mapping problem would exceed the combined processing capacity of every AI in the galaxy. We built it in 6 months," Daniel said flatly. "Melissa led the theoretical team. I engineered the quantum containment systems. We recruited 273 of humanity's best minds. We didn't sleep. We didn't stop. We didn't care about the cost." Gentar's legs trembled. She lowered herself into a support harness, unable to look away from the impossible equations floating before her. But the Heisenberg limit, the information paradox, the grandfather clause. "Solved, circumvented, and irrelevant," Melissa said. "We called it Project Lazarus. We mapped Sarah's quantum state from the moment before the accident. We constructed a probability matrix that allowed us to fold spacetime in a localized bubble. We brought her back." The Valkyrian ambassador's skin flushed from violet to bone white. "You resurrected her, actually reversed death." "Yes," Daniel said simply. Gentar stood abruptly, her diplomatic composure shattering. "Do you understand what you've done? Death is the one universal constant. Every civilization in the galaxy has accepted this fundamental truth. The Krell spent 10,000 years searching for immortality and concluded it was physically impossible. The architects themselves, beings who reshape planets, bow to the inevitability of. "We're human," Melissa interrupted, her voice soft but unyielding. "We don't bow." The ambassador paced the length of the conference room, her mind racing through the implications. If humanity had truly conquered death, the entire socio-political structure of the galaxy would collapse. Species defined themselves by their mortality. Philosophy, religion, law, economics, everything rested on the assumption that life ended. "Why are you telling me this?" Gentar demanded. "Why reveal such a galaxy-altering capability?" Daniel and Melissa exchanged glances, and in that moment Gentar saw the weight they carried. Not triumph, not pride, something far more profound. "Because we learned something," Melissa said quietly. "When we brought Sarah back, we asked her what she experienced, what happens after." Gentar's chromatophores went still, and "She said she was at peace," Daniel continued, his voice breaking. "She said she was somewhere beautiful, somewhere she wanted to stay. She begged us not to bring her back." The silence in the conference room was absolute. "We gave her the choice," Melissa whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Stay or return, she chose to go back to that peace. We respected that choice and we let her go, again, permanently this time." Gentar felt her legs weaken once more. "You developed the power to conquer death and chose not to use it." "We chose to respect life," Daniel said. "All of it, including the end. We're sharing this technology with the Council not to change the galaxy but to show you who we are. When humans love something, we will tear reality apart to save it. But we're also wise enough to know that some things shouldn't be changed, even if we can." The ambassador looked at the data crystal, at the impossible equations that represented humanity's grief, transformed into transcendent science. She thought of the council chambers, of the ancient species who believed they had seen everything the universe could offer. They had never seen anything like this. "The council must know," Gentar said finally. "This changes everything we understood about your species." Melissa smiled sadly. "We know, that's why we're here. The galaxy needs to understand. Humans don't conquer death because we fear it. We conquered it because we love each other that much. And then we chose wisdom over power." She reached forward and deactivated the data crystal, the schematics dissolving into shadow. "We came to mourn our daughter," Daniel said. "But we're also here to show the galaxy what humanity becomes when we grieve. We become gods who choose to remain mortal. We become the species that could change everything and chooses instead to preserve what matters most." Ambassador Gentar left the meeting with trembling hands and a mind reeling with implications. She would present humanity's revelation to the Council. She would watch as species spanning millions of years of civilization tried to comprehend what they'd just learned. In the end, it wasn't humanity's technology that changed the galaxy. It was their choice. The choice to love so fiercely that they broke the universe, and then the wisdom to put it back together again. That was the day the galaxy learned to fear and admire humanity in equal measure, not because they could conquer death, but because they chose not to. That choice, Ambassador Gentar realized, was the most powerful force in the cosmos.